Welcome back, guys. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. We're wrapping up our tier list here. We've got the quarterback video coming up right now, and then we've got the tight end video coming out shortly after this. If you guys haven't seen it already, I've already put out videos going over my top 50 players at both the running back and wide receiver positions, breaking those into tier lists, so I highly recommend that you guys go watch those. This one, I'm breaking down my top 20-ish quarterbacks, putting those into tier lists as well, just so that you can sort of, identify where those tier breaks are. Generally speaking, tier lists and tier-based rankings are the best way to go about things when you enter your fantasy drafts. It's just really important to understand where those positional breaks are going to be so that you understand how you're going to find the best values, and make sure that you're not the first player to take a position or take a player from a new tier at a position. Look for a position that's got more left there. Just try and make sure that you're getting the best value at every single pick you're making in a draft. So really fun to look at this. Really love doing these videos. If you guys have any disagreements or anything like that, let me know in the comments below, and should be a good one. Let's get into it. So starting things off with the obvious, we've got tier 1 here. I'm just calling these guys studs here, and honestly, this might be the deepest tier 1 of any position across fantasy this year. We've got 4 guys that I felt belonged in tier 1 here. We've got obviously Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and then Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts to me both belong in this tier as well. You'll notice there's a trend here. These are 4 quarterbacks that get it done through the air and on the ground. It's just really tough to have that quarterback 1 overall upside if you don't offer that kind of rushing floor. And all 4 of these guys I think have a great shot to finish as the quarterback 1. I think they've all got really high floors as well. It almost feels like a lock that all 4 of these guys finish inside the top 5 outside of injury. Not saying that's necessarily going to happen. I'm sure 1 or 2 of them will fall out, finishes like the quarterback 6 or 7 or something like that. But these guys, all 4 feel incredibly locked in. They're incredibly integral to their offenses. The only thing for me is just generally value speaking. For me, I end up drafting Jalen Hurts more than the other 3 because he's being drafted the latest. In fact, I believe by ADP right now, he's the quarterback 5 right behind Joe Burrow, who we'll talk about in the next tier. But overall, I have no problem drafting any of these guys. I think the earliest you could consider drafting any of them would be the middle to late round 3 for me, especially because there's 4 of them. It's just tough for me to really get behind drafting a quarterback in round 2. Like I say, you generally don't want to be the first person to take a player from a new tier. So if you're the first person in your league to draft a quarterback, anyone who gets, say you take Josh Allen in the 3rd round, as far as I'm concerned, anyone who takes Lamar, Jaden Daniels, or Jalen Hurts after you got a better value than you. So I think generally speaking, it's best if you can make sure that you take the 4th one of these, whoever ends up being there. And I think that's the best way to go about it. And if you don't get a value on either one of those players, then that's fine. Just move on to a new tier. But all these guys are great players. They're rock stars for your fantasy team. They're all going to be great this season. We've actually got a smaller tier here in tier 2. 2 players really fit the mold for me here, and it's going to be Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. I'm calling this the tier of guys that are not tier 1 quarterbacks, but that I could see a clear path towards finishing as the quarterback 1 overall. For Mahomes, it's obvious. We've seen him do it before. We haven't seen it for a couple years, but this is also the cheapest you can get. Patrick Mahomes currently being drafted as the quarterback 6. I don't find myself drafting a whole lot of him, which is a little bit surprising because I've got no problem with his ADP. I think it's pretty clear to me that he should be drafted right around there. If you wanted to maybe consider someone like Bo Nix or Kyler Murray or even Baker Mayfield ahead of him, you could do that, but I think it's just fair to say that neither one of those guys has the upside that Patrick Mahomes does. It's very possible that Mahomes finishes as the quarterback 10 again or something like that, but just knowing that that is in his range of outcomes, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, Chris Jones gets hurt, Chiefs defense falls apart this season, I think they could go out there and be a high-flying offense again. That would make Patrick Mahomes clearly a rock star in fantasy. He also offers a decent amount on the ground, a lot more than Joe Burrow does. As far as Joe Burrow goes, I really don't find myself drafting a whole lot of him at all. I've got a couple of best ball teams where I either took Jamar Chase or T. Higgins early, and then I am targeting Joe Burrow to sort of get that stack because it's something that you want to do in a best ball format. But as far as redraft goes, he's currently being drafted as the quarterback 4, like I mentioned, just ahead of Jalen Hurts. And I just think there's enough red flags for me that I don't love the value there. No doubt he can finish as the quarterback 1, but again, he's the least mobile of the guys we've talked about so far. He needs to go out there and throw for 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns to finish as a top 5 quarterback, and he could do that. He did it last season. He was fantastic. But you just need a lot of things to sort of rinse and repeat from last year. You need the Bengals to continue to suck on defense. Certainly could happen, but you also need him to stay healthy. You need Chase to stay healthy. There are things that could go wrong, and he could also just get unlucky in the touchdown department, and then he wouldn't finish where you need him to just because he doesn't offer anything on the ground. So I love Joe Burrow. He's a great player. He's fun to have in fantasy, but I just don't find myself drafting a lot of him just because I think the ADP is a little bit too high. Next up, we've got tier 3 for me, and this is 3 players that are not being drafted into the top 5, but that I think have a pretty clear case to potentially finish inside the top 5 this season. And for me, those 3 players are going to be Kyler Murray, Bo Nix, and Baker Mayfield. Again, when I'm putting these guys into tiers, it's not really in any particular order. I think that these guys just sort of belong all in the same tier. I don't see a huge difference between these guys. These are guys that I'm just looking to get the best value on. Right now, you've got Kyler being drafted as the latest of these guys. He's the one that I'm ending up with the most of just because he's the cheapest. But I have no problem with either one of these guys. With Kyler, you've got the advantage of they play, I think, all but 3 games this season inside. We know Kyler has historically played better inside than outside. You've got Marvin Harrison going into year 2. You've got Kyler talking about wanting to run the ball more this year than he did last season. You've got just the offense potentially trending towards being a little bit more pass happy. If you look at their first half or second half splits last season, they became a lot more pass happy over the back half of the season. If that continues this year, Kyler certainly has a path towards being really, really good for fantasy. Just like a fun stat. Not necessarily everything, but in terms of fantasy points per drop back, so just a measure of how many fantasy points a quarterback gets per time where the team either calls a pass play, or basically when the team calls a pass play, Kyler Murray actually averaged more fantasy points per drop back than Joe Burrow last season, so he's certainly got it in him. If they just throw the ball a little bit more, we know he can be incredibly valuable for fantasy, so I like Kyler a lot. Bo Nix really just took the world by storm last year, especially after the first 4 games when they let things open up. My only concern with Bo Nix, I guess 2 concerns. One, there's no clear superstar on that offense. Like for Kyler, we know Trey McBride's a superstar. We think Marvin Harrison could be a superstar. But if you look at Bo Nix, you've got Courtland Sutton is probably the best playmaker on that offense. TBD with RJ Harvey, but even if he's fantastic, he's not the kind of guy that's going to like elevate the season for Bo Nix. So you really need someone like Marvin Mims or Evan Ingram or Pat Bryant or Troy Franklin or Vele. Somebody's got to step up and become more reliable for Bo Nix to really turn into an elite fantasy asset, because on top of that, you've got a really good defense in Denver. So there's the possibility that Denver just plays well, wins 12 or 13 games this season, and does it sort of with like a run first, just take it easy approach on offense. And that could be the pretty clear path towards Bo Nix not being good for the NFL, or not being bad for the NFL, but not being good for fantasy. So a little concerning for me there. Other than Baker, the only concern I would have is just maybe a little bit of regression in terms of what we should expect from a touchdown standpoint. Finished last year with a career high in touchdown rate, so certainly that could come down to earth. But at the same time, you're adding another elite playmaker in Emeka Egbuka. You've got Bucky Irving going into year 2. You've got Jalen McMillan, good player, and if he's your wide receiver 4, that's insane. On the flip side, you do have Chris Godwin coming off of injury, and Mike Evans is a year older, so there's a little bit of concern there. You also got Tristan Wirfs scheduled to miss the first 4 games. Baker also had a career high in rushing yards last season. That could go down a little bit, so there are some red flags. I think if I had to rank them, Baker would be the last out of these 3 for me, but I think all these guys belong in tier 3, and they've all got a shot to finish inside the top 5 if things break right. Next up, we've got tier 4 here. It's going to be 4 players, and for me, these are like the last 4 quarterbacks that I think you could draft and leave the draft with only 1 quarterback. I think once we get past this tier, I'm probably looking to take 2 quarterbacks and just sort of play for some upside. But with these 4 guys, I think I'd feel okay going into week 1 with them being the only one on my roster. For starters, we got Dak Prescott, sort of like a poor man's Joe Burrow for me. Like, he's not going to give you anything on the ground, but he's got a great shot to finish near the top of the league in passing yardage. They added George Pickens. I think Dak Prescott could easily be one of the best values in drafts this season. If he finishes like the quarterback 6 or something, I wouldn't be shocked at all. And I think there's a clear path towards that happening. So I like Dak Prescott a lot. Jordan Love, I think kind of just got really unlucky last season. You had a lot of injury. Nothing that was like super serious, but you had him get injured at the very end of week 1 last year. It turned into him missing 2 weeks, sort of shifted this team towards being really run heavy. You had Christian Watson go down with a torn ACL. You had Jordan Love also injure his hamstring at one point. And even through all that, through the first 7 weeks, Jordan Love was the quarterback 3 in fantasy points per game, so he was actually doing really well. And then after that, after the injury, you just saw them shift towards being a lot more run heavy. Finished the year as the 3rd run heaviest team in the NFL, but I don't think that LaFleur wants to be a run first team. They spent 2 high draft picks on receivers this year, including a first round draft pick. First time they've done that in a long time. You've got Golden, you've got Jaden Reed, you've got Romeo Dobbs, you might get Christian Watson back at some point. Wicks might figure out how to catch passes. Tucker Kraft's a great tight end. You've got Josh Jacobs, great out of the backfield. I think Jordan Love has all the upside in the world to potentially be a top 10 guy this year, and he's being drafted way below that as well. So I like Jordan Love quite a bit, especially where he's being drafted. I like him, but I think I'd feel pretty good going into week 1 with him as my guy. Caleb Williams, maybe the riskiest of the guys on this tier, but he also might have the most upside of all of them. There's just a lot of uncertainty there. I'd be okay drafting a second one, and I'd probably be of these 4 guys, he'd be the last one, or the one that I'm most likely to draft the second guy, but there's just a lot of moving parts there. It means there's a lot of unknown, a lot of upside. We know the talent should be there, so it's just something to keep an eye on, but I think Caleb deserves to be in this tier as well. And then Brock Purdy, probably not going to finish as the top 5 guy, but he's probably going to finish as a top 15 guy. Sneaky athletic, offers a little bit on the ground. The pass weapons are there. You've got Kittle there. You've got Christian McCaffrey coming back. I believe in Ricky Pearsall. You're going to get Juwan Jennings there. I know he's holding out or whatever with a contract situation, but he'll be there. You've got Brandon Ayuk coming back at some point. You've got Shanahan, who we definitely trust as an offensive coordinator, or play caller, not the offensive coordinator there. But I think Purdy's going to be just fine. He's a guy you could start all year long and probably be just fine. Moving into a big tier here, we've got tier 5 for me, and this is a list of 9 quarterbacks that I had outside of tier 4 that I think all need to be drafted. I've said a couple times this year that I think we kind of can go like 20 deep at the quarterback position this year, and by that I mean there are 20 guys that I think you could realistically start in week 1 and feel okay with that. So I think generally for me, I do find myself either looking to get basically just looking for the best value at the position over the course of the draft, because I think there's so many guys that typically I just want to find one that falls to me in a good spot. I'm not really forcing the quarterback position anywhere, but with this list, we've got a lot of upside, a lot of players that I think have a lot of potential this year. Justin Fields, tons of rushing upside. We've seen it before. If things break right for him in New York, he could be fantastic. Drake May flashed last year as a rookie. They added Kyle Williams and Stephon Diggs. Also added Travion Henderson, great pass catcher out of the backfield. Drake May could certainly take a step forward here and be really good, and we know he's a mobile quarterback. He gives us a ton of rushing upside as well. J.J. McCarthy filling in for Sam Darnold this year. We saw Sam Darnold be a top 12 quarterback. If I told you that was possible even 2 years ago, you'd have laughed. So being able to turn Sam Darnold into a top 12 guy, if J.J. McCarthy can be a league average quarterback, I think he could easily be a top 12 player this year. C.J. Stroud, last year's fantasy darling in the offseason. Didn't really work out for him last year, but there's still a ton of pieces around him. Joe Mixon's dealing with a bit of a foot and ankle injury, so if he misses time, they have to lean on their passing game. I think they really could still air it out and score a lot of points. You've got Nico Collins, you've got Jaden Higgins, who I love. You've got Jalen Noel, you've got Christian Kirk. Dalton Schultz is reliable out of the back, or at the tight end position. There are a ton of weapons there, and I think C.J. Stroud, the upside is still there. The same case for him last year. It's still there this year. I know it didn't happen last year. The defense is a little bit better than we want it to be from a fantasy standpoint, so there is that. But, of course, Stroud needs to be drafted. Trevor Lawrence, they added Travis Hunter, brought Liam Cohen over. Trevor Lawrence could easily go out there and have a career best season. He's been the quarterback 8 before, so there's room for him to be better than that because we really haven't seen the ceiling for Trevor Lawrence. It kind of remains to be seen if the talent's there. I'm not necessarily a believer, but this feels like a make it or break it years for him. If he's going to ever break out, it's going to be this year. So just got to mention him. Geno Smith feels like a guy you can just start every single week if you need to. We've seen him throw for over 4,000 yards 3 years in a row. If he gets lucky in the touchdown department, he could certainly be really good. We've seen him be a top 10 quarterback before. And if you want to stream Geno, like this Raider defense shouldn't be very good. I think they'll find themselves in some shootouts, so I like Geno for sure. Justin Herbert, an incredibly talented quarterback. They added weapons for him with Trey Harris. You've obviously got 2 pretty significant upgrades at the backfield, getting Amarian Hampton and Najee Harris. This should be a really good offense in LA, and if Herbert gets lucky with touchdowns, Herbert's a guy that can go out and throw for 4,500 yards and 35 to 40 touchdowns. You need this defense to fall apart. You need them to be less run heavy than you want them to be, but the kind of talent there is it's certainly there. It's got to mention him. Bryce Young also needs to be mentioned. Really just looked like a completely different player at the back half of last year. Big fan of him. I think he's certainly turning things around. They added Tedero McMillan, so he's got to be mentioned for sure. And then Jared Goff, just a reliable weekly streaming option every single week. He's being drafted way too high, so I'm not drafting him anywhere really. But he belongs in this tier. You can start him. He and Geno Smith are like the same to me, but you can play him if you need to. The upside's certainly there on a week-to-week basis, but we just don't really see upside for him over the course of the season because last year was a career best year, and he still really wasn't all that fantasy relevant. And the last tier of players I'm going to talk about here, it's 6 players that I think might have streaming upside. They're not players that I think need to be drafted, but they're just players outside of like that top 20 that I felt needed to be mentioned. Tua, probably the most obvious one of these guys. Maybe should have made it into tier 5, but we've seen him be great for fantasy before. He's honestly got an outside shot to like lead the league in passing yardage, so I have to mention him. Sam Darnold, we saw him be a top 12 quarterback last season. Much worse situation this year with JSN and Cooper Kupp in Seattle instead of Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. You got a defensive system instead of an offensive one there. So I don't love it there. Worse offensive line, but we saw him be a top 12 guy last year. Can't necessarily just completely write that off, so we've got to mention him. Anthony Richardson might not even be the starter for Indianapolis, but any game he starts, he's going to have streaming upside. I think we need to at least mention him. Matthew Stafford in the right matchups could certainly be relevant. And then Michael Penix Jr., I don't think he needs to be drafted, but there's just a lot of unknown there. There's a chance he comes out and he's just fantastic, and if that's the case, then he could be a steal in drafts. I think he'll be a popular waiver pickup if he has a breakout week early, so just have to mention his name as well. So that'll do it for the quarterback tier list. Up next, I'll be going into my tight end tier list, and that will close out our rankings videos. We'll probably do a refresh about a month from now, go over my tier lists and everything, just like right before the media draft season. I'll probably schedule those to start coming out like, the weeks of like late August, like August 20th, August 30th range. That way we're just giving you guys up-to-date rankings and everything right before your draft. So stay tuned for those ones. Stay tuned for the tight end tier list as well. If you haven't watched the running back or wide receiver tier list, I highly recommend you guys go watch those. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any future content, there are going to be at least 3 videos a week, all off-season long. Honestly, there's going to be more than that. I'm going to be sprinkling in mock drafts, just tons of content, mock drafts, draft strategy, rankings, sleepers, breakouts, values, busts, all that stuff. We're going to have a ton of stuff for you guys all off season long and even more during the course of the regular season. So just make sure you stick around. If you stick around all year long, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to win some leagues together. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, just help me out. Give it a thumbs up. It helps out the algorithm and all of that. And looking forward to getting closer to football here. I think we're recording this on the 16th, so we're 15 days away from the Hall of Fame game. And then we're going to be drafting in August and all that. So it's going to be super exciting. Super stoked and having a lot of fun. So I'll catch you with the next one, guys. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.